Miles Morales is originally from an alternate universe, and while he's been doing perfectly fine in the 616 main Marvel universe, what if things were to bleed back over? This is the Comicstorian channel, where we take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. Today we're going to be dealing with Miles Morales in the Ultimatum Saga. Issues 1 through 21 of the Miles Morales Spider-Man book that started up a couple years ago tells a full story of Miles Morales getting his footing and fighting against the villain known as Ultimatum. That's today's full story. And if you're wondering what a full story is, well, over here at Comicstorian, sometimes the full, complete version of a story takes about 2 years to come out. We then turn it into these giant videos for you to enjoy and learn about your favorite superheroes. So enjoy the Ultimatum Saga. It was another day in New York as the friendly neighborhood wall crawler swung through the busy streets of Brooklyn. Except, this was the other Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and he was on his way to his creative writing class holding onto his journal, which he was almost late for. But Mr. Samudi said that they were to write in one throughout the semester, something about a place where a writer can truly be honest. Either way, Judge said that it was an easy class, so Miles figured why not. The thing was, it felt pretty good to get all that stuff out, even if no one was reading it. It was the story about him. That he was bitten by genetically altered spiders that gave him spider powers. That he was endorsed by the original Spider-Man. That his father Jeff had his own secrets too. That he had worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. and his uncle Aaron was a supervillain known as the Iron Spider. The only person that he knew that was a real hero, though, was his mom, Rio. She was the chief nurse at Brooklyn University Hospital. And that takes real guts. The original Spider-Man once said to make sure to keep his secret identity, well, secret. But it's been a lot easier now that he was able to tell his parents that he is Spider-Man. Well, one of them at least. There's quite a few spider people. During the week, Miles spends his time in Brooklyn Visions, a high school where he stays on campus throughout the week. He shares his room with two guys, Judge and Genki. Genki is the only other person who knows his secret. Being Spider-Man is great. He gets to help people while hiding in plain sight. And the only drawback is that often it leaves him awake at night. So much adrenaline is pumping through him that he can't even close his eyes, and by the time he finally does, well, it's time for class already. But if there's one thing about school, it's Barbara. Barbara is his not girlfriend. They aren't putting labels on things yet. This week is cool though. Barbara invited him to hang out with her and her little cousin Eduardo. It was nice. They got ice cream. And they hung out by the bridge. The truth, though, is that he's confused. Confused about Barbara, confused about school, confused about the world. He is Miles Morales. He is Spider-Man. And he's never been more sure of his powers. But he's never been more confused about his responsibility. After a night of web swinging, Miles begins to head back home when suddenly he hears an alarm going off. He rushes over to the source of the alarm to find a group of soldiers stealing something. Lots of somethings. Miles swings down to the alleyway stating that he's going to take a wild guess and state that the stuff doesn't belong to them, seeing as how they're moving it out of a hole in the side of the building. The soldiers all turn their attention on Miles, but he notices something. The soldiers are short. Before he can answer it any further, Miles' spider sense goes off and a giant object comes rampaging through at him. As Miles is knocked to the ground, Rhino stops, telling him, "Oh, it's you, that kid Spider-Man. Thought you were the other guy." Miles gets up collecting himself, asking, "What's going on here?" And Rhino tells him, "It's none of your damn business. Just go home and play Sega or whatever." Miles asks, "Really? None of my business? And Sega? How old are you?" Rhino looks down. "I ain't done nothing wrong, but if you want to tussle, fine." Miles jumps on and Rhino punches him in the stomach back to the ground. He then says, "All right, let's try this." And he begins to web Rhino up, but Rhino flexes his muscles, breaking out of the webbing rather easily, asking, "What gives? The other guy's a lot faster." Miles leaps over the charging Rhino and starts to web him up again, using his thickest webbing. Rhino smiles as he rips out of that webbing, and Miles asks, "Really? Are you serious? I can't make it go any thicker. You know what? Here." He gives Rhino a venom blast, but as Rhino falls to the ground, he gets back up, telling him, all right, you win. But that ain't my job. I'm just here looking for my niece. Someone snatched her and those creeps are gonna lead me to her. You know, the ones getting away." Miles yells in frustration, webbing up the fleeing truck, and as the truck crashes, the little soldiers come out with their hands up. Miles takes the helmet off one of them, and as he does, he sees the blank stare of Barbara's cousin Eduardo. Confused and flabbergasted as to what's going on, he asks, "What the heck is going on?" And Rhino yells, "I don't know, I swear." But before Miles can ask another question, Eduardo electrocutes him, and everything fades to black. As Miles opens up his eyes, Rhino asks, "Are you all right?" And Miles gets up, rubbing his head, stating, "Thanks for not squashing me while I was knocked down." Rhino tells him, "Look, I wasn't involved in whatever that was. I was just looking for my girl's niece." Miles stops, asking, "Wait, you have a girlfriend?" And Rhino stops him. "A wife, actually, but not anymore. Anyway, Oksana still has family around. I'm just trying to look out for them. And I can still do that for her at least. Her niece is gone, and the girl's mom is too messed up on dope to do anything about it." Miles stops. "Okay, well, as long as we're sharing, that kid who zapped me, that was my friend's little cousin." Rhino asks, "Your friend's cousin is a supervillain?" And Miles stops him. "No! Eduardo doesn't even have powers. Well, he's not supposed to anyway." Rhino looks around, telling him, "Something weird is going on here, kid." And as the sun comes up, Miles stops everything. "All right, I gotta, go." And Rhino laughs. "What is it, past your curfew? How old are you? Anyway, maybe we can work on this together. Let's meet back here at 10 p.m. I'll do some poking around in the meantime." Miles tells him it would be so much easier if they could text, but Rhino says, "Nope. No phones, don't like them. Be here tomorrow night, kid." The next day after school, Miles stops by Barbara's place to try and get some answers out of Eduardo. But the second he rings the doorbell, Barbara comes running out crying. She yells that he's gone. She tells him that Eduardo is missing. He was coming home from playing at the park, and he just disappeared. Miles tells her not to worry. He's sure that Eduardo is out there. He'll find him. Barbara asks, "What is that supposed to mean? You're gonna find him?" And Miles plays it off. "Well, I just meant," Barbara tells her, "it's sweet, but I need to go now and be a family, okay?" As Miles returns to the dorms, Genki says that he did some digging. He put his sleuthing skills to the test, and Miles asks, "Did you really just say that?" Genki tells him that he did some looking on some black market sites and he found a message board arranging delivery uniforms. Customized, kid-sized, tactical uniforms. One fireproof, one elastic, one shock resistant. He'll text the address. So a short while later, back downtown, Miles swings down and Rhino tells him, "Looks like you made it, kid. Mommy and Daddy give you permission to be out this late?" Miles ignores the comment, telling him that he has a lead. Might not be anything, but someone delivered uniforms like the ones the kids were wearing to an address. Rhino tells him, "Good, we can go kick the door in, but if we do that, the cops are going to be So Miles swings across the city holding onto a web seat for Rhino, and he says that he's getting his exercise for the week with this. Rhino laughs, telling him it must be nice to be young and have a normal body. "I wouldn't know what it's like, people thinking they know you because of how you look." Miles tells him that he might know more about that than one would think. But as the two reach the address, they see nothing out of the ordinary except for the truck with a bunch of armed guards surrounding it. Rhino says that this place used to be a safe house for several gangs way back in the day. Most likely someone old school inside. Miles tells him that he'll take a look inside, so wait here while he sneaks around. So he climbs up the side of the building and using his camouflage abilities, he sneaks inside and he sees a group of men. One of them says that it's all here, tested and everything. Tombstone, the gangster, then steps into the light stating that he doesn't normally like doing anonymous business. "But with goods like these, mindless superpowered twerps who will do anything they're told, what's not to like?" Tombstone stands there and then he pauses. "I'm getting an itch. Someone's watching me." He spins back and opens fire on the wall where Miles was, and Miles jumps up, telling him, "Maybe your back is itchy because you forgot your lotion." But it doesn't take long for Miles to take out the thugs, and as he stands there starting to punch Tombstone, Tombstone doesn't even seem fazed. "Is that all, kid?" He then grabs Miles by the neck, bashing him on the top of the head. Suddenly the wall behind Tombstone bursts open and Rhino steps in, telling him, "It's been 5 minutes!" Miles yells, "Thanks! Now hey, watch out!" But while Miles is trying to web up Tombstone, he ends up webbing up Rhino because of how large he is. Tombstone knocks the both of them down, and Miles says, "Okay, that was embarrassing. Let's try something different. You ever watch wrestling?" Rhino gets up charging at Tombstone, but as Tombstone moves out of the way, he asks, "Is that really all you guys are gonna do?" Miles then tells him, "Nope," and he begins to web up past him. As Tombstone looks back, he sees Rhino bouncing off the webbing, landing right on top of him. He pulls himself out of the ground, stating, "You're both dead men!" And then one of the child soldiers walks up, creating a blinding flash, stunning both Miles and Rhino. As the two regain their ability to see, they see Tombstone has escaped, but they do find something else instead. a room full of child soldiers. Miles says that they have to get these kids to a safe place, and they need to find Tombstone and whoever sold them these kids. But they can't go in guns blazing. They have to figure out something. Just don't know how to pull it off. And that's when a voice says, "Well, young man, you're not doing it alone anymore." Miles and Rhino both turn back to see Captain America standing there. Cap shakes Miles' hand, telling him, "Hello again, Spider-Man. It's been a while." And Miles grabs Cap's hand, telling him, "It's so good to see you." Rhino clears his throat, and Miles introduces him. This is... But Cap stops him. "I know. Rhino. We've met. What are you up to?" Rhino yells, "Hey, I ain't done nothing wrong this time. I'm just trying to find a lost kid." Miles tells Cap that Rhino is telling the truth, and they started to work together. And Cap says, "All right, well, that's good enough for me then. I'm here at the request of a congresswoman. She's investigating children who have gone missing in the foster care system. So what have you guys learned?" Miles and Rhino explain what they know about the current situation, and Cap says that they're going to find them. "Just give me a few minutes to make some phone calls." Outside, Miles notices the tire marks leaving the scene, and he says that they all look normal, but they have a funky residue on them. Cap pulls out his phone, stating that Tony installed an app on this thing where they can send information to a lab and get results back instantly. Just having a little trouble with... Miles takes the phone, telling him he'll take care of it, and there we go. As the phone scans the ground, the readings come back, and Miles says that it shows the residue is mostly diesel fuel and canal water. Cap stops him. "Canal? Here? This has to mean..." But at the same time, both Miles and Cap yell, "Goblin!" Cap yells, asking, "Aren't you a Queens guy?" And Miles tells him, "That's the other dude." So Miles goes back to looking at the phone, and he says that there's something else here. Pembrokium sulfate. And he says that it's used in early experiments in attempting to control mutants. Cap looks away, telling him, "I know exactly where they are." Later at the Gowanus Canal, the three look over at a large warehouse, and Cap says, "This is it. The warehouse was once a great super-secret shield facility designed to hold mutants. Not criminals, just mutants. If the need came," they said. Rhino shouts, "Let's go then!" And Cap holds him back, telling him, "There are children in there. We need more information before we can go knocking down doors. Spider-Man, what do you think?" Miles stops for a moment and realizes that Captain America just asked what he thought. This is so cool. He'll scout ahead, and if they hear any loud noises, come and kick and butt. Miles sneaks into the warehouse, but as he lands, he feels like something is wrong. There isn't anything here. At that moment, a child shoots out a blast of fire, narrowly missing him, and Miles yells, "Yo, Cap! Rhino! They're ready for us!" Cap and Rhino come charging in, and while the kids all begin to fight the heroes back, Rhino yells that he's going to run right through them. But Cap gives back up, pushing him back, telling him, "You might be a criminal, but you're better than this." Rhino stops, telling him, okay. Sometimes the mad just takes over." Miles quickly begins to web with the room to restrain the kids, and he says that he has an idea. If he spreads a mild venom blast across the webbing, it should gently knock the kids out. Cap shields himself from an elastic punch, telling him, "I trust you." So Miles shocks the webbing, knocking the kids out, and then a voice says that they should have handled the losers themselves. A bearded man walks out, telling him, "You guys can call me Snatcher." Cap asks, "Are you the one taking all these children?" And Snatcher tells him, "Damn right I am. And just so you know, I only take children from the scum that sleeps on the streets, dirt that ignores their borders, garbage that fills our veins with poison." Rhino then asks, "Why are we letting this guy yap? Let's end it." Snatcher lifts up his sunglasses, revealing a red glow in his eyes, and he tells him, "You ain't gonna do nothing. I'll show you why they call me the Snatcher." As everyone suddenly stops moving, they groan in pain. And Snatcher says, "Sometimes it hurts people when I snatch. Turns their brains into jello just before they die. Except something different happens with the kids. They become obedient, even sold off a few." As Snatcher focuses attention on Cap, Miles and Rhino break free of the control, with Miles telling Rhino to quickly get the kids out. While Snatcher monologues to Captain America, Miles takes the time to web him up and punch him down, telling him that they're done here. And Snatcher asks, "Is that what you think? I got one more trick." Everyone looks up, and all of the kids are pointing their guns at each other. And the two closest are Eduardo and the niece that Rhino is looking for, Tanya. Snatcher gets up, tearing off the webbing, stating, "All these kids are..." But Eduardo then struggles and says that he doesn't want this. Snatcher looks back, asking, "What did you say?" "I own you! Just need to focus more concentration on you." But Miles swings into Snatcher with a fully charged Venom Blast, and soon everyone under Snatcher's influence begins to come to. Miles helps Cap up, asking if he's okay, and Cap says that his head's a little scrambled, but he'll be fine. Give him a moment to make a few phone calls and get this all taken care of. So after Cap has his team come in to clear things up, Miles tells Rhino that it looks like this is adios. Glad to see him working on the good side for once. Rhino looks at Miles and punches him in the arm, telling him, "You're all right, kid." And with everything returning back to normal, Eduardo safely back at his family, Miles takes Barbara out, and they go enjoy a good movie. The next day, Vice Principal Dutcher sits in his office staring at Miles Morales' school profile, stating that he can feel it. Miles Morales is hiding something, and now he knows what it is. He knows his secret. The odd pattern of tardies, the frequent trips off campus. Miles Morales is skipping school. Over in the dorms, Miles' friend Judge says that he has something that they can't miss out on. Today is the last day of the museum showing. Hip-hop artists' original notebook pages. We have to go. But there's only one problem. We have school. Genki asks if they can keep it down. His earache is killing him, and Judge says that he has an idea. How about they just don't go to school? Genki is sick and they can play it off that way. What if they all got sick? Genki says that he just has an ear infection. It's not even contagious. And Miles says that he isn't so sure, but that's when his phone goes off with a message from Barbara stating that she is going, and so he decides, based on the fact that the girl that he likes is going, that he's earned a day off of school, right? So Miles, Barbara, and Judge all head to the subway to get across town when Barbara says that she wants Miles to listen to something. She hands him an earbud and he puts it in his ear and says, "Wait a minute, is that you? It sounds amazing." She blushes, telling him, "Yeah, maybe sometime she can." But as Barbara leans in for a kiss, Miles' spider sense goes off and suddenly the train hits something and it begins to get derailed. Miles jolts forward with a sigh, stating that he is getting pushed to the middle car. Barbara tries to grab onto him, but Miles sneaks off between the cars, where he camouflages himself and he begins to web up the cars before they can crash together. Once the train is stopped, Miles hops onto the station platform and Judge yells, "There you are!" Miles tries to stop them all. Yeah, I tried to get back, but I got pushed all the way into the next car. Barbara looks at him suspiciously. So a short while later, over in Prospect Heights, the teens make their way to the Brooklyn Museum, and they begin to look over some of the old writings of some of hip-hop's legendary artists. Barbara grabs Miles from behind, stating that this is really something. Maybe now they can. And as she leans in for a kiss, there's suddenly a crashing sound and the lights go out. Everyone begins to panic, and the curator tells everyone that they need to move outside. Miles sneaks off to put his costume on, and that's when he looks around to see what's going on, when out of nowhere, he sees a blonde man dressed in a Pharaoh costume. The man shouts, "Hear me, people of Brooklyn! I have come seeking the Stone of the Gods. Resist and your lives are forfeit. So proclaims the Frost Pharaoh." Miles asks, "The Frost Pharaoh? Seriously?" The Frost Pharaoh fires an icy blast from his staff, barely missing Miles. Miles quickly webs it up, stating that he hates to break it to him, but there weren't a lot of blondes in ancient Egypt. Shortly after putting the hurt on Frost Pharaoh, Miles hurries outside to meet up with Barbara and Judge, stating that was wild. But I finally found you guys. What happened back there? Barbara folds her arms, and she suspiciously says, "Spider-Man happened." Judge then says, "Yeah, they're gonna be cleaning this place up for a bit. Maybe we should just go to the movies instead." So a block away, the three go into the movies, and Miles finally gets the chance to kiss Barbara without interruption. But sure enough, his phone buzzes with a message from Genki. Barbara stares and Judge asks, "Really? Is he some sort of barbarian?" As Miles reads the message out loud, he says that they need to go. Dutcher is onto them. So a short while later, Dutcher is storming through the halls, banging on Miles' room, yelling, "Miles Morales!" He waits for a moment without getting an answer and then smiles to himself. "Just as I thought." Just then, Miles weakly says that it's open. He didn't hear him knocking. He's been sick all day. So when Saturday comes, Miles is able to finally relax in his own bed at home, where he writes about his day in his journal. And as he finishes the last bit, he sneezes. And he realizes that maybe he really is getting sick. After recovering from his cold, the next day, Miles goes out on patrol when he hears gunshots coming from somewhere in the city. He heads towards the source of the sounds, and a man points in the direction stating that it's just down there. It's these damn gangbangers again. Someone outside of the crew are moving in on the Golden Lords. Straight up war. They're gonna hurt some kids. Miles tells him, "Not today they're not," and he jumps over to the next building where he can see several well-dressed people shooting at several people dressed in gold. Miles camouflages himself, jumping into the group of well-dressed men and begins taking them out and webbing them up. But as he is finishing, his spider senses begin to go off and members of the Golden Lords begin to open fire on him. He jumps through, dodging the bullets, asking, "Really? I just saved you. Should have ran when you had the chance." And after a quick punch and a web shot here and there, the Golden Lords are subdued themselves. Before the cops can come, Miles has a question. "What was your beef about?" One of the Lords asks if he's new or something. These guys are a part of Tombstone's crew. Came down from Harlem trying to take over. One of Tombstone's men says that it's more than trying. Brooklyn belongs to Tombstone now. Miles grabs a hold of the man asking, "All right, where's Tombstone?" And don't make me ask twice. As sirens can be heard, the man tells him that he isn't saying a word and the cops are on their way. So get your damn hands off him. The next day at school, Miles and Barbara decide to meet up for lunch. But as they're talking, Barbara begins to become visibly nervous. She asks if there's anything he's hiding, something big. Miles panics for a moment, telling her, "No, absolutely not. What kind of secret could I be hiding?" She then tells him, "Look, if you can't be honest with me, then maybe we need to sit down and rethink a few things." So a short while later in the chemistry lab, Miles sulks while Genki gets to work making Miles' web fluid to put into the centrifuge. Miles says that a please would be nice, and Genki asks if he forgot where the webbing comes from. They're using his borrowed lab slot, using chemicals he got a hold of. Show some respect, Miles. Miles stops himself. "You're right, my bad. I know that all of this couldn't be possible without your help." Just then, there's a knock at the door and a student walks in asking what is going on in here. And Genki sighs. "Hi, Sean." As Sean walks over, he says that he heard someone was in here. They know that the chemicals have been missing from the lab, right? They overheard Dutcher stating that there are some less fortunate kids that might be stealing them to make drugs. Crazy, right? Genki tells him that they're just working on a new polymer. So if he could, Sean points to Miles and asks, "Okay, well, who's this, Genki?" And Genki tells him, "Miles, this is Sean." Miles says, "No, I remember who Sean is. We had gym freshman year. Sean would always pick on the other kids in there." The two stop. They lock eyes. And Sean backs up, telling him, "Ooh, I'm scared. Lucky I don't feel like getting suspended for fighting. You better watch your back, tough guy." Miles shakes his fist and Genki tells him to chill. What are you gonna do? Spider punch a high schooler? So later that night on patrol, Miles sits around working on his journal when he hears a loud explosion off in the distance. He quickly swings over to the Brooklyn Motor Clubhouse and he sees the building burning, and down below, more of Tombstone's men are attacking. Miles comes crashing down on the shooters, telling them, "I don't like the Bloody Machete crew either, so let's start with the name. What you're doing is sick, and I would be a trash Spider-Man if I just let you." Suddenly, his spider sense goes crazy as a blast of fire shoots out. A man in a mechanical suit walks in with a flamethrower, and Miles looks at the man inside, telling him, "Hey, I remember you. You're one of Tombstone's buddies, right?" The man fires another blast, telling him that he's Tombstone's lieutenant. Miles quickly rolls over, grabbing a pipe, smacking it down on the lieutenant's arm, destroying the flamethrower, and then he tears off the helmet, telling him, "We both know that there's no good barbecue in New York." Once everyone is webbed up, Miles tells him, "Okay, I know that Tombstone is flexing, but this needs to stop. Where is Tombstone now?" The lieutenant tells him that he ain't saying nothing. So Miles hops down and looks through some of the thugs' pockets, telling them that he knows that the higher-ups use self-scrubbing phones. But the lackeys? There's always one who keeps location services on. So after looking through one of the thugs' geolocation, Miles swings off, stating, "Hey, I'm gonna say hi to your boss for you." And a short while later, Miles reaches the location that was on the thug's phone, but it's less of a safe house and more of a junkyard. He jumps in, taking out the front guards, and then he sees that at this exact moment, there's a drug deal going down inside. So what's the best way to crash it than to ride a junk car right through the middle of it? After webbing up the men, Miles tells one of them that he has a few questions. And that's when a flapping sound can be heard. The thug gets up and starts running away, shouting, "Oh God, it's her! She found us again! Don't let her kill me!" Miles watches as the man skitters away, asking what is that all about? And he looks back to see a young girl with large wings holding the two men, stating, "I'm here for Tombstone and you can call me Starling." Miles stops. Hey, what's up? Starling stops him, telling him, "Tombstone cleared out already. Where is he?" The fools don't seem to know, no matter the beating I put on them. Miles tries to speak up again, but Starling tells him that he's wearing a costume, which means that he must be one of Tombstone's special boys. Guess I'm gonna make you talk. She begins to shoot at Miles, but before he even has a chance to react, she spins back, punching into Miles' back, asking, "Where is Tombstone?" He yells, "Are you crazy? I don't work for Tombstone. I don't even know where he is." Starling then says, "Oh, that's the wrong answer." And she releases Miles in midair. As he is screaming and plummeting to the ground, he starts to fire web lines to the back of Starling's wings, shouting, "We're not done yet!" And they both come crashing down into a pile of tires. As they get up, Miles asks, "Are you okay?" She brushes herself off, telling him, "Yeah. Guess you really wouldn't ask me that though if you worked for Tombstone." Miles stops. "Doesn't being Spider-Man give it away?" And Starling asks, "Wait, there's more than one? I just came here from Detroit, new to town, been hunting Tombstone for a bit." Miles looks back at some of the thugs, seeing their injuries, asking, "You're doing all of this on purpose?" Starling scoffs, telling him, "Oh, you're damn right. They're lucky I didn't kill them. And if you think that's bad, just wait until I get a hold of Tombstone." Miles yells, "Hey, we can take Tombstone down, but not like this. This guy hardly has a face left." Starling smiles. "Oh, I get it. You have a soft heart. It's kind of cute." She then gets ready to take off, telling him, "I'm gonna go ahead and follow another lead. We can exchange numbers and keep in touch if anything comes up. See you later, Mr. Secretive." A few days later at school, Miles gets ready to head home when Barbara stops him, asking if they can talk for a moment. Miles rushes over, telling her, "Of course we can. What's up?" She sits down and she states that she really doesn't like secrets and he's keeping a big one. Is he really going to be like this? She can't ride with someone who's lying. She's given him a chance to tell her the truth. He knows that she will keep any secret between them. Miles doesn't respond, and Barbara gets up stating, "Yeah, I thought so. Have a good day, Miles." He sulks, getting a message from Starling telling him to meet her at Brooklyn Heights. He arrives early, looking up at the tall building, asking, "So is that Tombstone's setup? He's living large." Starling asks if he always talks to himself when he's doing the Spider-Man thing. Either way, they're gonna get real loud in a minute. Tombstone dies tonight. Miles stops her. Hey, no one needs to die tonight. We're just gonna take this one step at a time. How are we going to approach?" And he quickly follows Starling to the roof, where she's already fighting several armed men, shouting, "Where is Tombstone? Maybe if I dropped one of you from the building, you would know." Miles jumps into the fight, taking the guys down without hurting them, stating, "We don't have to kill these people." But before long, Tombstone kicks down the door to the roof, holding a large two-handed minigun, asking, "Oh, were you looking for me?" Starling rockets straight at him, but Tombstone begins to shoot at her wings, causing her to fall. Miles rushes over to help, but Starling tells him to just get over to Tombstone. Tombstone spins around, taking aim at Miles, but he begins shooting his own people. The hired thugs begin to escape, and Miles camouflages himself, sneaking up, stating, "All right, give it up." But Tombstone thrusts the back of the gun into Miles' stomach, telling him, "Oh, I don't need to see what you are." Miles groans, falling to the ground, and then he webs up the minigun, stating, "And we're done playing with that. In fact, we're gonna skip everything else and go straight to the Venom Blast." As Miles charges up, Starling swoops in, taking Tombstone into the sky. Miles webs onto her feet, asking, "What are you doing? We can't do it like this." Starling sighs, stating, "Oh, you're such a softie. Not gonna lie though, it's pretty cute." Tombstone tells them both, "You better kill me or I'm gonna kill you." Starling releases her grip on Tombstone, and as he falls, Miles wraps himself up with Tombstone, stating, "If you're gonna let Tombstone die, then you're gonna have to let an innocent man die as well. Please, save us?" Starling grinds her teeth. "Damn you!" She flies down, catching them and placing them gently on the ground. A short amount of time passes, and Miles sits with Starling as the cops arrive, and he says that Starling is a cool codename. But who is she anyway? Starling says that her actual name is Tiana Toombs. She's Adrian Toombs' granddaughter. You might know him as the Vulture, and he was the one who designed her suit. But what's his story? Miles tells her that he's from Brooklyn. One day he got spider powers and he had to step up. Starling asks, "And you're not going to tell me your name?" Guys are always afraid to open up. "My grandpa used to say having secret identities made you vulnerable." So the two get up, and Miles asks, "Is this goodbye? Are you heading back to Detroit?" And Starling says, "Nah. Too many bad memories over there. Grandpa's got a place on Bay Ridge that he isn't using." So Miles tells her, "Yeah, well, if you ever need a guide or something, you can always call me." And Starling stops him. "I don't even know your name. Anyway, I'll see you later, Spider-Man." As Miles heads home, he pulls a folder out of his costume, something he picked up while at the penthouse. There was nothing crazy on it, but there was one thing that caused some concern. And there's only one person that can give him answers: his Uncle Aaron. After finding a file in Tombstone's penthouse with information about his uncle, Aaron Davis, Miles had to pay him a visit to fully understand his involvement with the supervillain. As Miles steps out of the cab, Aaron opens up his door telling him, "Long time no see, Miles." And Miles asks if that's all he has to say to him. Nothing about where he's been for the last few months. But as the two just stare each other down, Miles brings him in, hugging him, and Aaron says that he had to disappear for a bit. Set some things right, but he's back, and it's damn good to see a friendly face. Had to pull a few favors to get things settled though. Got myself a clean slate. No more of that criminal life. Miles walks in, looking at the well-furnished apartment, asking if he wants to know how this is all being paid for. Aaron asks, "What, are you my PO now?" It's all legit money. Sold the Iron Spider suit back to Tony Stark. It was based on his design and he paid a ridiculous amount of money to get it out of circulation. But how about we talk about something else? How's your life going? Miles sighs. Well, that's pretty messed up if I can be honest. Can't find any time to study, got dumped. However, that's not why I'm here. I'm here about Tombstone. After a recent raid on his safe house, he had something on his desk. Miles pulls out a picture of Aaron in the Iron Spider suit. And after looking at it for a moment, Aaron asks, "Is this my nephew asking? Or Spider-Man?" Miles asks, "Please don't make me feel like a snitch, Uncle Aaron." And Aaron places his hand on Miles' shoulder, telling him, "Tombstone tried to recruit me for his silly little gang, but I told him no. I'm out of that life, word to God." Miles looks at him. "I hear that, and I'm proud of you, Uncle Aaron." But as soon as Miles gets ready to leave, he hears something explode off in the distance, and Aaron tells him, "Go do what you gotta do. Take care of business, Spider-Man." As Miles hurries down the street, he runs into Bombshell heading in the same direction, and he asks, "Did you hear the explosions too?" And Bombshell asks him, "How could I not? And what exactly is that thing?" Up over the buildings, a giant mechanical drone climbs out stating, "Target acquisition error, system reboot required." It then begins to fire down on the two heroes, but as Miles rolls out of the way, he gets hit by one of the stray shots. Bombshell tries to follow up, but her attacks keep barely missing, and she yells, "It's too damn fast!" Miles jumps back up, webbing some of the light posts, stating, "You can't aim for where it is, you gotta aim for where it's going." Once the webbing is in place, the drone flies into it, getting tangled up, allowing Bombshell to focus one of her blasts and take out the machine for good. As that drone is falling to the ground on fire, Bombshell takes out her phone, telling him, "All right, need a pick of this one. Saving Brooklyn before noon? Well, I guess it's technically 12:18. Miles hears the time and he yells, "Shoot! I'm supposed to meet my parents for brunch and I'm already late." Bombshell tells him to go ahead. She'll make sure everyone's okay. So he hugs her, telling her, "You make a great hero." And he quickly webs off. Later at the restaurant, rushing in, he begins to apologize for being late. That there was a killer drone on the loose, but Spider-Man and his friend took care of it and nobody got hurt. Even though they know that Miles is Spider-Man, his parents tell him that that must have been something. And his father, Jeff, asks, "How are things?" Miles sighs, telling him that the week was mostly good. Barbara dumped him though. Got tired of him keeping secrets. Miles' mother, Rio, says that she's very proud of him, and Jeff tells him that he's still in high school and look at what he's done. Saved the world. He saved other worlds. And Rio then says that that is why they know that he'll be able to handle this. They're gonna have a baby. Miles stops. He's taken aback and he asks, When did this happen?" Jeff says, "Well, with you out of the house these days, your mother and I had more time with..." And Miles stops him right there. No. You know what? Never mind. This is already getting weird. But also, most of all, congratulations. Just then, Miles' phone beeps and he says that he's almost forgot. He has to get to the library to study with Genki. I'll see you guys later. So he hurries back out, and off in the distance, something begins to watch him. The computer states, asset quantum's distance. An unique state of being cloaked is enough to be out of range of subject 002 to 004's innate danger detection. Before Miles realizes, a blue energy being appears behind him, and Miles quickly turns around to attack, but as he does, the being disappears. His spider sense then goes off again, and that being teleports and comes out swinging, narrowly missing him. He tries to go back on the offensive, but that being then teleports again, only to reappear and hit him from behind. Miles begins to get frustrated, but as he turns back, he misses again. The being then pops out of another portal, cracking him in the back of the head, stating, "Asset Quantum has acquired subject 002 to 004. And a short while later, Miles begins to open up his eyes, seeing himself strapped to a table without his mask, as he panics, shouting, "Let me out of here!" The robotic voice states, "Subject is conscious again. We will not deliver the terms of agreement." Miles struggles, asking, "Who are you?" And the voice comes back, telling him, Subject must be silent to hear terms of agreement. If subject is not silent, subject understands that disciplinary measures will be instituted. Miles balls up his fist, stating, "Whoever you are, I'm about to institute some disciplinary measures upside your head." At that moment, he's electrocuted and the voice continues, "We will deliver the terms of agreement to the subject." A thin metallic man begins to state that they are the assessor. They assess subject capabilities for proprietary development. The terms are as follows. Subject 002 to 004 will participate in trials assigned by the assessor, and if the subject does not participate in the trials to the assessor's satisfaction, the subject understands disciplinary causes may be invoked at their discretion. An image of Miles' family and friends appears, and he begins to yell, hey, no! And the assessor goes on telling him, disciplinary causes may be directed at the subject or towards the subject's associates. Miles tries to break free, shouting, "Let me go!" And the assessor tells him that the subject will now rest for 4.5 hours, as detailed in the preparation clause. The subject will remain attached to all monitoring devices. Lights are now being extinguished. Miles yells out that he just wants to go home, and that's when darkness begins to proceed. 4.5 hours later, the assessor returns, stating that the subject will now wake, commencing assessment of threat detection and attendant combat skill. The latches on the table holding Miles in place all begin to release, and Miles is thrown into a combat simulation. He jumps through the bullets that are being fired at him as he begins to take down more drones that appear out in the streets, all while the assessor is taking notes. And as the last drone is destroyed, Miles asks if that's all they got. Without a response, the room is then filled with gas, and the assessor states that the subject will rest for 2 hours as detailed in the preparation clause. Trials will commence in 2.5 hours. Day after day, Miles is put through more and more combat exercises, training simulations, and even gets experimented on. His body is beaten and dragged down over and over and over again, but one day, as Miles lays strapped onto the examination table, 2 scientists look through the notes and state that there's clearly some triggering event. Arachnid DNA. The other one says sure, but what if there's some genetic predisposition to receptively that? And the first scientist then asks, a Spider-Man gene? As the scientists go back and forth with their theories as to how Miles became Spider-Man so easily, they mention that they may need to bring in those close to the subject. They will start with the family and work their way outwards. But the thought of others going through what he's been going through begins to send Miles into a fit of rage, ripping off his restraints and quickly knocking everything over as he runs towards the exit. The alarms begin to sound, but before Miles can get down the hall, Quantum appears in front of him again, and Miles yells out, "Come on, get out of the way!" But as Miles tries to fight, it's the same as before. He misses Quantum teleports, hitting him from behind. After the last hit, Miles staggers back, stating, "Okay, let's change it up. I'm gonna try a little Venom Blast." Miles moves and then shifts, punching at the opening he left and lands right through Quantum's chest. Quantum falls out of the portal, and Miles then says, "Okay, now I just gotta find a way out." But up ahead, Miles sees the doors to the outside. The light shining through makes him run even faster. He did it! He can finally leave! And as he runs through, he stops, looking around at the metal room, and the assessor says that the subject's endurance under simulated escape conditions exceeds projected parameters. More assessment must be connected. As the days begin to pass, back at Miles' home, Rio and Jeff are in a panic, trying to find out what happened to their son. Jeff says they need to think this through. Miles could be off being Spider-Man and they can't blow his cover. But Rio shouts, "It's her son out there! They have to find him now!" That's when there's a knock at the door, and as Jeff opens it up, Aaron says, "Hey, what's up, little bro?" Jeff asks, "What in the hell? How long have you been in town?" Aaron walks in, sits down, and states that he knows he's not really welcome here. But they noticed that Miles is missing, right? Well, he might have an idea as to where Miles is. Rio yells, asking, "Wait, this is your fault? Is this one of your criminal buddies?" Jeff tries to calm her down, and Aaron tells him, No, it's cool. Plenty of reason for both of you to doubt me. Look, we all know about Miles' big secret. After he stopped by the apartment on Saturday, there was an explosion and Miles ran off. Now, I may not be the Iron Spider anymore, but I had a feeling I should have followed. After some snooping, I found a building off Dumbo where Miles might be. We need to get some gear and go check it out. Later in Red Hook, Jeff and Aaron walk down a dead-end alley, and Aaron says that this is it. Hopefully she's, Sorez, are you? Suddenly, a hidden door opens up and a woman steps out stating that she got the message. The word on the street is that he's out of the life. So what is he doing here? Aaron tells Sorez that he's doing what he has to do right now. Is the new suit ready? Cerez says yes, but it's expensive, and if he's on the straight and narrow, how exactly is he going to pay for it? Aaron tells her that he'll owe her his services. Any job she wants, all expenses included, no questions asked. As everyone walks into the lab containing the new suit, Cerez asks if he's sure about this because he knows how this works. Jeff says that he can't let him do this, and Aaron stops him, telling him that they don't have time for him to play his brother's keeper. Show him the suit, Cerez. Geared out in his Prowler suit, Aaron and Jeff sit on a rooftop, with Aaron stating that the building they need to get to is across the street. Guards look like they're about to hit their shift change, which fits with his info. Jeff asks how did he get his info, and Aaron shrugs, telling him, just some of my criminal buddies that Rio was talking about earlier. Jeff says that he knows that Rio doesn't hate him, right? And Aaron laughs, telling him it's all good. Rio's the mother Miles needs. It's all that matters. Now let's hit these fools. Soon the assault on the rooftop begins, with Aaron and Jeff quickly making their way into the building. But as they stop to look around, they see that there really isn't anyone there. Aaron scans the floors and sees that there are people in the basement floors, so him and Jeff move out. As soon as they run into the group of guards, the two of them knock them out before they have a chance to sound the alarms. But then they see one security woman standing by the button, and Aaron says that they must be joking. Jeff asks if she could please not, and the woman slams on the button, running off. As Aaron and Jeff descend, they're forced to fight wave after wave of guards, and as they reach the bottom floor, they charge inside and they see Miles strapped to a table, beaten and barely conscious. Jeff runs over and Miles asks if this is another trick, and Jeff tells him no, son. No tricks. Aaron and Jeff help him down, and the assessor appears on the screen stating, continuing assessor, supplementary report on retention of subject 002004. Asset Quantum will now initiate non-lethal acquisition of subject motivation assets. Quantum appears through a portal, bashing Jeff to the ground. As he moves to Aaron, Aaron leaps up to the ceiling, telling him, I got some tricks too. As Aaron gets ready to attack, the cloaking drops and Quantum gets a clean hit in. Miles then jumps towards Quantum, telling him to stop, but Quantum spins back, knocking him to the ground. Soon, everyone gets to their feet and they begin to attack, but before they can make any progress, Quantum slips through another portal, disappearing. The assessor says that the executive committee report is as follows. They've completed the review of subject 002004. Asset Quantum will now be able to withdraw to avoid further asset expenditures. Despite trial interference, net data profit from subject 002 to 004 trials has been significant. Full details of their findings will be available soon. Everything fades away, and Jeff says that it's their chance. Once everyone gets outside, they have a chance to catch their breath, and Miles begins to cry, stating that the experiments they did to him. Jeff kneels down, telling him that his mother will be here. And at that moment, Rio speeds in, jumping out of the car, asking if he's okay. What happened to him? Miles tells her that he just wants to go home. As Rio helps him into the car and drives off, Aaron tells Jeff that under all of that sweetness, his son is a rock. Jeff asks if maybe after they do a little recon, he'd like to come over for dinner. It'd make Miles happy. Aaron pauses for a moment and then hugs Jeff, telling him, yeah, that'd be cool. As two individuals patrol the halls of ESU, one says, and then the dad's like, Johnny, Johnny, and the kid goes, yes, Papa? The coworker laughs and says that he can't get that out of his head. His daughter must have watched it 5,000 times. There's a loud crash, and they both grab their guns, running into a room where the crash came from, and in front of them is a large, hulking creature. One that if you've seen the Ultimate Universe or watched the Ultimate Spider-Man show, you may know. Because as both try to figure out what they're staring at, the creature slashes at them with its claws, and as their bodies fall, a voice calls out, excellent work, Norman Osborn. Now get what we came for and burn the rest. But that's a story we'll get back to. Because as the months passed by, Miles kept to himself after he escaped the experimentation, and he continued to write in his journal. A lot happened with the assessor. A lot of weird dreams with him as someone else. Like it was him in another world, another universe. But since everything happened, he hasn't been able to put on the costume of Spider-Man. He sighs as he closes his journal for the day, and as he opens up his door, his parents scream, Happy birthday! Jeff hands over the balloons, and Miles looks at the one, and he asks, did I turn like 1 year old or something? And Jeff tells him, yeah, the other one got a leak. Rio then pushes Miles and Jeff out, stating that they need to hurry up and get the cake. Go! Vamonos! Jeff salutes her, stating, yes, ma'am! Miles, let's walk. A short amount of time passes, and as they both return, Jeff goes back to helping. And Miles tries to tell them they don't need to bother with all of this. Jeff just tells them they're keeping things small. But he wouldn't count on his uncle. Aaron's kinda caught up in something. Miles realizes that is because of him. Aaron had to strike a deal in order to get Miles' location. At that moment, the doorbell rings and Genki comes in. But before anybody could sit down, there's a crash from upstairs. Miles hurries upstairs, wondering who it could be, and he sees Spider-Man Peter Parker jumping in the room. Happy birthday, Spider-Man! Sorry about your desk. Miles asks, you remembered? And Peter tells him, of course. How old are you? Like 60? 70? Miles gives a forced laugh, telling him, haha, why don't you come down for some food? Meet the folks. Peter takes off his mask, telling him, actually, I can't. I came by to say happy birthday, but also tell you that a scientist and 2 security guards were killed at ESU last night before stealing loads of equipment. I was going to investigate, but then I remembered, hey, why would they need me here when there's already a Spider-Man in Brooklyn? Miles tries to tell them that he hasn't worn the costume since, but Peter jumps back up, telling him, I texted you the address. Sorry to do this on your birthday, but I got a jet, man. Miles tries again to tell him to wait, but before he could finish, Peter Parker's already gone. Miles lets out a long sigh, reaching into his closet, taking out the Spider-Man costume, and after a few minutes go by, he's in the streets. He swings around, telling himself that this actually feels kind of good. Getting the air on his face, getting the webs in his hand, nothing but sky beneath his feet. This is what he needed to get out of that slump. And as he reaches ESU, he crawls into the building and sees nothing. But at that moment, a deep, scratchy voice tells him, sneaky, sneaky, but I can smell you. Miles looks back to see where the voice came from, and right behind him is a giant hulking creature. Miles pauses for a moment, thinking, wait, something is wrong. This thing, I know it from somewhere. The creature charges into Miles, and the two come crashing out as Miles tries to web him down. The creature begins to pull the webbing off of his face, and as he can see again, he notices Miles flinging a card straight at him. The creature smiles, jumping through it to escape, but Miles webs onto him and slingshots himself, smashing a brick across the creature's face. The fighting continues throughout the city, but as Miles punches into him, he shouts, I know who you are! You're the Green Goblin! We fought before. You were... But before Miles can finish, Green Goblin grabs a hold of his head and smashes him into the ground. Miles kicks back, telling him, hey, I'm trying to think here. As the Goblin is thrown off into a construction site, he gets back up and focuses on one of the workers. He lunges at them, but just before the Green Goblin can land, Miles pulls the worker out, telling him, hey, this is between us. Now you're gonna give me some answers right now, or I'm going to, but at that moment, a giant foot stomps down on Miles, telling him, you aren't gonna do anything. My name is Ultimatum. Yours doesn't matter because you're about to. At that moment, Ultimatum stops and tells him, wait, I know you. Just leave it be. There's a wrinkle here. I need to think through it. And Green Goblin asks, what? Why don't we? Ultimatum grabs a hold of the Green Goblin, telling him, because I said so, Norman. Don't forget who's in charge here. Miles tries to web onto both of them, but Ultimatum's boosters propel them further than Miles can reach. With nothing left, Miles gets back up to process what just happened. The big guy knew him, but who was he? Later that night, at City Hall, Kingpin says that he's elated to see him again. He's so very sorry that they weren't able to find what they were looking for, but just know that there's always a place here for them. Ultimatum says that he appreciated everything that's been done so far, but right now they need to live in the world that they were made for. Get back to the streets and run them how they used to. Kingpin tells him that he's certain that that is the path that they must walk, then so be it. Easy enough for him to turn a blind eye to an unlicensed entrepreneurship within reason. Ultimatum asks, wait, are you giving me Brooklyn? And Kingpin tells him, I'm not giving you anything. You've helped to build everything, and Kingpin is not a man who forgets that. Just don't expect me to call you Ultimatum, and I certainly won't insist upon Mr. Mayor. Ultimatum pulls off his mask, telling him, Ultimatum is for scaring rivals. You're my best friend, Wilson. To you, I'll always be plain old Miles Morales. Bushwick, 1:30. Miles is taking out another group of thugs in red costumes. But the problem is, no one knows who these guys are, not even a guess as to who is filling in for Tombstone. However, the one thing that Miles does know is that these clowns are flooding Brooklyn with a new type of drug, which brings Miles to his next problem. Every time he fights these guys, they always destroy the goods before he could ever get a sample, and no one is talking. What's more, Miles' Uncle Aaron skipped town again. What he could really use is some advice right now. Things are continuing to get worse, but the next day at school, Genki tells Miles that they have finally reached the point that he's been warning him about. They're officially out of web fluid. Things couldn't get any worse, except they do. Just when Miles learns of this bad news, Vice Principal Dutcher pulls Miles into his office, telling him that they have an issue with Miles' attendance. Because of all of the excessive callouts, Miles is being put on academic probation. Any more no-shows and then they'll kick him out of school. So what's he supposed to do now? Stop being Spider-Man? Well, he can't do much without web fluid. So tonight's patrol is mostly gonna be wall crawling, and that's when he hears somebody shouting, "Get your hands off me!" He quickly jumps over to the source, and looking down into the alleyway, he sees several of the red costume goons holding a man down, injecting him with their drug. Miles cloaks himself as he leaps in and starts to take them all down, asking, "Are you forcing this man to take your product? What's wrong with you all?" One of the men yells that Spider-Man is invisible, hit the lights and activate the goggles. Miles manages to hold his own for a while, but with so little web fluid, it means that he has to work twice as hard. Even though he has a splitting headache, Miles manages to release a full charge Venom Blast, knocking the group out. Once everyone is rounded up, Miles then asks, "Who are you working for? Ultimatum?" And says, "When did drug dealers force their product on the customers for free?" None of the men speak, so Miles sighs, stating that he's just gonna have to take some of it then. Before he could grab a sample, the man who was injected before roars with green eyes, tackling into Miles. Miles jumps over to the man, telling him that he doesn't know what's going on, but he really doesn't want to hurt him. The man tries to grab hold, but Miles throws the man to the ground, knocking him out. Miles then asks, "Okay, what is going on?" And one of the thugs says that the guy is in La La Land. He ain't gonna say nothing for about 12 hours. One of the other thugs tells that man to shut up and then says, "The boss will return from Peso Maritimo" in Spanish. Miles responds with, "Peso Maritimio, huh?" And then in Spanish says, "Didn't know Spider-Man speaks Spanish, did you?" With that lead, Miles takes a train to Manhattan and finds a man with several armed guards around him. At that moment, he gets a text from his father telling him that the baby is coming early and he needs to get home now. Miles sighs, realizing that his leads are all dead at the moment. But out of the corner of his eye, he sees a man with a gun trained on an important-looking man down below. He runs over to the attacker asking, "Didn't you know that New York abolished the death penalty?" But before he can land a hit, the man turns invisible, quickly throwing 3 knives, narrowly missing Miles. With Miles shouting, "Hey, you could've!" At that moment, the cloaking device fades and the man standing before him is Uncle Aaron in the Prowler costume. As the cloaking device fades and the man standing before Miles turns out to be Uncle Aaron in the Prowler costume, Miles yells at him asking, "Uncle Aaron, what is this?" And Aaron stops him asking, "Miles, what the hell are you doing here?" Miles explains that he was tracking down a man named Ultimatum. But never mind that, where have you been for the last few weeks, Uncle Aaron? Aren't you supposed to be out of this life? No more Prowler for you? And Aaron says that the man down there is Don Cordillo. He was out of the life, but the Prowler suit, well, Uncle Aaron needed it. And it didn't come free. Miles realizes what's going on. "You needed it to rescue me, didn't you?" Aaron stops him, telling him, "Look, this isn't on you. Just walk away, Miles, please." And Miles tells him that he's not gonna go unless they go together. His mom is about to give birth, like right now. Aaron pushes Miles back, telling him, "You don't get it. I owe people. I can't just walk away from that." Miles readies himself in a fighting stance, stating, "We both know I can't let you kill someone, Uncle Aaron." And Aaron tosses the gun, telling him, "Yeah, I know." So Miles charges in, punching Aaron in the chest with a Venom Blast. Prowler gets up, telling him, "I ain't gonna lie, that hurt like hell." Miles tries to web up Aaron, but Aaron ducks out of the way, telling him, "Spider-Man might be faster and stronger, but I'm the one who taught him how to scrap." As the two lock hands in a power struggle, Miles tells him, "I don't want to hurt you." And Aaron tells him, "And I don't want to get you hurt, so we're gonna leave this here." Aaron rolls on his back, kicking Miles across the roof, and as he jumps away, Miles webs up his leg, pulling him back down. But down below, the fighting alerts the mob family, and they start shooting up to where Miles and Aaron are fighting. Miles quickly pulls Aaron behind the stairway entrance, and Aaron yells, "You have no idea what you just did, Miles!" However, before Aaron could explain, a loud thunderous voice then says, "Ultimatum thinks the family is washed up. Easy pickings. Well, Man Mountain Marco is about to send you back to your boss in pieces." The giant man comes crashing down, knocking the two of them away, while Miles is asking, "Okay, really? That's his name?" Aaron jumps into Man Mountain Marco and begins to punch his face, but Marco flings him off with very little effort. Miles calls out asking if he's okay, and Aaron holds up his thumb, telling him, "I'm okay." Miles then turns back to Marco and begins swinging, but with each hit, it just bounces off. Miles says, "All right, I'm just gonna need to," and Miles pokes Marco in the eyes, and he jumps across the street to check on Aaron. Aaron tells him that he still needs to watch out for, but before he could finish, Marco throws pieces of building across the way. Miles webs up the rubble, asking if he knows how much water he could have wasted if he had just hit the... But Marco then bursts out of the water storage container yelling, "Shut up already!" And he plants his fist right into Aaron's stomach. Miles tries webbing him up, but Marco flexes, telling him, "Looky, I ripped that sweater you was making me." Miles tries one more time, but his webs fall short, with Marco asking, "What, you out of juice, kid?" Miles sighs, telling him, "All right, time for plan B." And he jumps forward, shocking Marco with a venom blast. Marco brushes him off, telling him that sorta hurt, but he's been taking special vitamins. Miles asks, "What is with that today? 2 people shaking off a venom blast? Ridiculous." Just as Marco gets ready to finish the fight, Aaron leaps in, kicking Marco in the face, pushing all of his weight off of the ledge of the roof. As Marco goes crashing into the sidewalk, Miles runs over, asking if he's going to be okay, and Aaron tells him, "Yeah, maybe." But after Marco groans, Miles sits back, telling him, "That's a relief. We need to get home," but Aaron stops him and tells him that he doesn't get it. "I just ditched a job, Miles. I broke the code. People don't just let you walk away from that." Aaron holds out his wrist, and a projection of the costume maker, Sorez, appears, and Aaron says that he has some bad news. Sorez tells him that she knows. He botched the job. She's kind of surprised he called, though. Figured he'd be on the run by now. There's a bounty on his head, and it's big. Already gone out, and half the contractors in the city already picked it up. "My hands are tied, Aaron." Aaron tells her, "Yeah, I understand. No hard feelings." But Sorez stops him, stating, "There might be something we can do, Aaron. If I were to capture you without canceling the bounty, I might be able to negotiate a settlement with Ultimatum. Maybe. You'll need to get to Red Hook, though, and there's a lot of people trying to kill you between here and there." Realizing that Miles just botched the Prowler's job, sending the entire city after Uncle Aaron, the two of them begin to run together. And Miles says, "All right, so I just want to get things straight. You borrowed this suit and you became the Prowler to save me from the assessor. And then you were tasked to assassinate some gangster to pay off the debt. But now, because you didn't assassinate the gangster, there's a price on your head. That cover it?" Aaron tells him, "Yeah, pretty much. And right now, we have to get to Red Hook. If Sorez can talk sense into this Ultimatum guy." Miles yells, Wait. You're working for Ultimatum? Ultimatum nearly killed me." Aaron stops him. "Look, we don't have time for this. We need to get to Brooklyn and my Auntie Grav's down." Miles asks, "What about the train?" And Aaron tells him, "No, too narrow. Too many kids and old people in the way. But there's one thing I was still testing." But before Aaron could call on it, a fire hydrant is thrown at him as the Rhino yells, "Prowler, you bum! Get down here and fight me like a man." As they climb down, Rhino looks at Miles and asks, "Wait, are you running with this chump now? I thought we were friends, Spider-Man." Miles says that he's about to kill an innocent man for a little bit of money, and Rhino stops him. No. That man ain't innocent, and it ain't a little money. It would be enough for me to quit. Never have to hurt anyone again, Spider-Man." Miles tells Rhino not to do this, but Rhino charges in, barely missing Miles before he leaps away. Rhino continues to stampede through the streets, but as they reach the park, Rhino runs himself right off of a bridge. The two look down, with Miles stating, "Hey, are you gonna be okay, Rhino?" And Aaron stops him. "Sure, that's the Rhino. He'll bounce back, let's go." But just then, a device on Aaron's wrist begins to beep, and Aaron says, "Finally, our ride is here." A few moments later, Aaron's glider begins to arrive, and Aaron says that he was still working out the kinks, but this should get them to Brooklyn. After a few minutes pass, though, the two begin to fly across the East River. But before they can even land, a rocket shoots up, destroying the glider. Miles and Aaron land on a dirt pile, and they roll down, and Miles asks if he's okay, and Aaron says that he's still breathing. At that moment, a voice tells them, "Not for long! Not after Scorpina and the Syndicate are done with you!" And with Scorpina is Trapster and White Rabbit, and all three begin to look down at the Prowler and Spider-Man. Scorpina whips her tail, and Miles jumps out of the way, stating, "I really hate this!" White Rabbit swings her carrot sword, but Miles grabs a hold of her, falling onto his back, throwing her across the street. Aaron begins to yell that there are too many of them, and they are too tired. Switch to stealth. A few moments later, over on the highway, as they have snuck away, Miles says that he can't hold on to this truck for very long. "I'm just so tired." Aaron tells him that he should be fine as long as they find a bus that, but as the two jump off of the highway, a giant explosion goes off, slamming the two into the ground. Scorpina walks up, stating that she's going to collect the bounty, but before she can finish, a small dart is then shot into her neck and several more into her and Chapster. Miles looks up to see Starling flying down, stating that she was just in the neighborhood and heard someone causing a ruckus. Miles catches Scorpina telling her that he appreciates the save. Could she possibly give them a lift to Red Hook? Starling says that she'd love to, but she is currently working on a case of some missing girls and the trail is already getting cold. Miles tells her, No. You've already helped us enough, thanks though. Starling flies off telling him, anytime, stay cute, Spider-Man. And Aaron says, stay cute? Who is that? Miles watches Starling fly off telling him that it's a long story. So a short while later, just outside of Cerez's place, Miles and Aaron run towards the entrance and a voice shouts, Hold, fools! There is a mighty bounty on the Prowler's head, and it shall be claimed by the Frost Pharaoh. Miles stops in place, literally just asking, Really? As the two easily take down the Frost Pharaoh, Aaron tells Miles to wait outside while he takes care of this. Inside, Cerez sits at her computer telling Ultimatum that she thought he'd prefer him alive. And Ultimatum says that the man botched the job, but Cerez goes on stating that the circumstances there were particular. No tool is right for every job. But Mr. Davis made it from Washington Heights to Brooklyn on foot while incapacitating several assassins. Forgive her for being frank, but she would be a fool to throw away such an asset. Ultimatum tells her very well. She made her case. He will allow the Prowler to live so long as he knows that he belongs to Ultimatum. But later, at the hospital, Miles runs down the hall as his dad comes out asking where has he been. Miles asks how is his mom, is the baby okay? And Jefferson says that everything is okay. It was a little scary, but his baby sister decided to come a little early, that's all. He can go inside now. Aaron slowly walks off stating congratulations. He knows that Rio doesn't want him around, so. But at that moment, Rio yells that he better not dare leave without meeting his niece. Everyone goes inside, even Uncle Aaron, and Rio tells Miles to meet his sister, Billy Marina Morales. So once that was done, Miles headed out on patrol after swallowing his pride and speaking with Peter about his shortage of web fluid. But the good news, he did learn some things. The red goons running around are working for Ultimatum, and the drug that they are pushing is something called Goblin. The only thing that Miles needs to do is get a hold of a sample and figure out what its effects are. Over in the cemetery, Ultimatum's crew meets with a buyer to unload his next shipment. But to get a sample, Miles is going to have to do this one thing a little different. A few moments later, he stands out shouting, "Woe unto you, trespassers!" The buyers panic, asking if he's a ghost, and everyone scatters with the seller yelling, "Wait, it's just Spider-Man?" The seller then looks around and realizes that he's the only one left, and Miles motions to the others that are already webbed up, telling him, "Yep, already got them." The man falls back, stating, "Forget this, I give up." And once the three are securely wrapped up in web fluid, Miles states, "Why are you practically giving this stuff away?" And one of the goons tells him that they're not gonna tell him anything. They don't know anything. If they knew things, they'd get shot. So after acquiring a sample, Miles turns in for the night to try and get an early start on school the next day. But during lunch, Mr. Sumida asks Miles if he could stop by. He wanted to speak with him regarding a possible scholarship, a writing scholarship. Given the proper training, he'd be able to become a very successful writer. Miles tells the teacher that he appreciates it. This class has really been helping him manage his life, especially writing everything down in a journal. As Miles reaches into his bag to grab the journal, he suddenly realizes that it's not there. And Mr. Sumida states that he is so sorry. He knows the devastation of losing something so precious. But Miles shouts, "No, you have no idea. If somebody finds that, I gotta go." He quickly heads out, trying to retrace his steps from the night prior, running along the same rooftops and ending up back at the cemetery. He checks between every one of the tombstones, but just then, his spider sense goes off. He jumps out of the way of the incoming tombstone, and the ultimate Green Goblin tells him, "Whatever you're looking for, you just found something else." Miles jumps up, hitting Green Goblin, telling him, "Those are graves! You are being so disrespectful!" But as Miles lands, Goblin grabs onto another of the tombstones, throwing it right into Miles' face. Goblin then charges into Miles, with Miles asking, "Where did you even come from? And why does my brain hurt every time we fight? It's like punching a bad memory." As the two land in a football field, Goblin yells at him, "You talk too much, kid." Miles lands on the Goblin's back, telling him, "All right, no more talk. Eat bioelectricity then." With the venom blast going off, Goblin tells him, "You're gonna have to do more than that." And Miles responds, "Fine, how about a supercharged blast?" He focuses all of his strength into the venom blast, causing the Goblin to scream out in pain before falling with a loud thunk. A few minutes later, the police arrive and they ask if everything's okay. Miles catches his breath, telling them that he's good. This guy shouldn't be giving them any trouble, but I can't stick around. He jumps over to a nearby alley where he changes back into his street clothes before heading back to school, stating that he just needs a minute to get to his academic probation meeting. Almost there! As Miles stumbles in, Mr. Dutcher stomps him, telling him, "It would seem that we're both heading to the same place. You know, attendance is the main subject of your review. You always come into the building at the last minute from goodness knows where as usual. But this time, I finally know why, Miles." Dutcher holds out Miles' journal, asking, "Are you looking for this?" Miles slowly steps back and Dutcher states, "Just imagine my astonishment when I found this outside this morning, clearly dropped by a student in haste. Fate is a funny thing, Mr. Morales, or should I say." But before Dutcher could call him by his other name, there's a loud boom and the Goblin shouts, "Spider-Man!" Everyone runs outside and they see the Green Goblin pinning down one of the teachers, and he asks, "Where is Spider-Man? Where is he hiding?" Miles tells Dutcher that he needs to go, but before he could change, some of the lesser goblins that have been following Goblin jump down and throw the two of them into the wall with everyone else. Miles asks what is happening, and Genki says that the big guy showed up demanding Spider-Man. Judge says that this is crazy. Why would they even think that Spider-Man would be at Brooklyn Visions? And Miles nervously scratches his head, stating, "Yeah, crazy, right?" Goblin shouts, asking who is in charge, and a teacher steps forward, stating that he is. The Goblin laughs at the teacher's height. "I don't know where Spider-Man is hiding, but if he's not here in 2 minutes, this old man's skull is going to be crushed into a melon. And then the Goblinoids are going to start on the brats." The teacher says, "Surely whatever you're looking for, you can do so without harming the children. I'd be more than willing to remain as a hostage if you'd let them go." Goblin towers over him, asking, "Is the tiny man not scared?" And the teacher tells him, "Of course I am, terrified even, but I will do whatever I have to protect my students." Goblin gets ready to swipe at the teacher, but then Dutcher calls out, "I know where Spider-Man is." He looks back at Miles and he says, "He's right here. I'm Spider-Man." Dutcher pounds his chest and Goblin stares, smacking Dutcher into the wall, telling him, "I've had enough of these games." Genki whispers to Miles that he'll create a distraction. They need Spider-Man now. But before Miles could tell Genki to wait, Genki launches himself at one of the Goblinoids. Miles takes his opportunity to sneak off and get dressed, and as the students all begin to try and defend Genki, the Goblin's head is yanked back as Miles flings himself over the crowd. As Miles lands, he calmly says, "We don't have to do this here. I'll come with you." And the Goblin charges at him, shouting, "I'm gonna rip you to pieces where you stand." The Goblinoids all begin to pile onto Miles as he asks, "What's up with all the mini-me's? Ultimatum didn't have enough ugly working for him?" The Goblin reaches on, grabbing Miles, throwing him across the yard, telling him, "You talk too much!" Miles goes bursting through the school gym, and as the Goblinoids follow, he venom blasts them. But as the Goblinoids crash into the ground, they begin to revert back to their human forms, and Miles realizes that he's hitting people. The two continue the destruction throughout the school, but just before Miles could land a supercharged venom blast, the Goblin tells him, "I'm gonna kill you before this is over." And he just escapes. Miles gets ready to follow, but with him already exhausted and never fully recovering, he almost collapses. As the police arrive, he changes back to his street clothes, hurrying back, telling Dutcher that he's ready for the probation review. Dutcher tells him that school is closed. Look around. Everything is on fire or turned upside down. Also, you seemed to disappear during our crisis today. Very interesting. Miles tries to state that he can explain what's in the journal, but Dutcher takes out the journal, telling him, "Ah, yes, your journal." The two stare at each other, and Dutcher tells him that as vice principal, it is his duty to report any student engaged in dangerous activities to the rest of the administration. And so it's a good thing that everything that he read in this journal was an entirely fictional story written by a talented, if unfocused, young writer. Isn't that right, Mr. Morales? As Dutcher hands over the journal, Miles takes it, asking, "Fiction? Yeah, it's fiction, Mr. Dutcher." Dutcher then says, "For what it's worth, after reviewing Mr. Samita's assessments and giving further consideration to your contributions to Brooklyn Visions, I will be recommending that your academic probation be lifted. Good afternoon, Mr. Morales." Miles nervously realizes what is going on. Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Thank you. With Miles trying to focus on getting his life back together, one question that he has had is what happened to his Uncle Aaron? What happened to Prowler? Well, after being recruited by Ultimatum, Prowler was sent out to retrieve things for Ultimatum, and the latest being something from Herc's Pharmaceutical. As Aaron quietly breaks in, he begins to crack a safe when he is suddenly surrounded by 3 armed guards. He reaches in, taking out the small vial, stating, "It's a pleasant night, isn't it?" He spins back, throwing the smoke bombs onto the ground, and then he makes for the exit. But with his entry point being too far away, he throws his daggers, cracking the window before jumping through it. As he escapes, Ultimatum radios in that tonight's drop-off will be slightly different, that the reagent will be delivered to him personally. Aaron ends the call stating, "Oh, this can't be good." Once Aaron arrives at Ultimatum's home, he sees Goblin standing there. An Ultimate Green Goblin tells him, "I'm supposed to check you for weapons." Aaron says that their boss is a man who can turn 20 feet tall and has a Captain America shield. It'll be okay. Ultimatum welcomes Aaron in, stating, "Congratulations on another successful assignment. You've proven to be quite the asset to the organization, Aaron." Aaron hands him the vial, telling him that he means him no disrespect. But they could have had the normal drop-off like usual. Why bring him in personally? Ultimatum says that the chemical is the last piece of a puzzle that he's been working on his entire life. But that is not why he brought Aaron in. He brought him here to talk about another universe. There is the basics of the multiversal theory. However, the truth is the multiverse isn't just a theory, it's reality. People from other timelines walking these streets, creatures from other realities. And then there's us, 2 dudes from Brooklyn. How do we know about it, right? Well, here's the thing. I've seen another universe. Shoot, I've even robbed it. But it's done things to my mind, forgotten lots of what I've already seen. But some things stick out. As Ultimatum pulls off his mask, Aaron looks at him asking, "What the hell is that?" It looks familiar. Ultimatum watches and says, "It's true then. The further away from the event you get, the more of your memories of that place fade. They're almost gone already." Aaron takes off his mask asking, "What are you talking about?" And Ultimatum tells him that his body and mind are trying to reconcile with the unreconcilable. "You see, I've learned a lot about this stuff. I went back and forth between 2 worlds trying to find my place. But now, I'm right where I belong. Care for a game of chess?" Aaron sits down at the chessboard asking, "Is this how you show me how deep you are? How you're just some basic Brooklyn thug under that ass-kicking suit?" Ultimatum tells him, "Nah, my point is, under it all, I am a basic Brooklyn thug. And I'm damn good at chess, too. The problem is, right now, you're only seeing part of the board. You need to see all the pieces together to figure it out. That's why I needed you to come here personally, because you came from that other world." Aaron pauses for a moment and then asks, "What?" Ultimatum goes on telling him, "You have the same energy as the things that I've stolen from that other world. But what's been bothering me is that you also share that signature with just one other person, Spider-Man." Gas begins to shoot out of the chessboard and Aaron is knocked out. And Ultimatum tells him, "Spider-Man will be brought in soon enough, and when he is, we will all have a nice talk about where he came from." The next day, Miles heads off to school when his spider sense kicks in. He narrowly dodges a net when suddenly a man calls out to him. That man, along with a group of special agents, tells him that he is wanted for a suspected violation of Kamala's law. His name is Commander Timothy Dugan, acting under the authority of the Child Hero Reconnaissance and Distribution Law Enforcement. And if all of that is too much, he may call him Dum Dum, but he is here to bring in Spider-Man. Miles jumps up onto the water storage asking him, "Dum Dum? Didn't you run with Captain America like back in the day, and now you're working for that senator, Patrick?" Dum Dum yells, "I am working for the United States of America! Do not make this harder than it needs to be, young man!" Dum Dum tells him, "I don't want to do this." Miles says, "Really? Did you even look at yourselves? Those uniforms make you look like fascists." Dum Dum tells him, "I really don't want to do this." And Miles tells him, "Oh, you most definitely do." Miles leaves, webbing up one of the agents, slamming him into another, and then webs up a third and a fourth. With one concentrated venom blast, Miles takes out the remaining individuals, and Dum Dum says, "This is rather freaking embarrassing." Miles says, "Hey, watch the language. I'm a kid, remember?" Dum Dum takes out his stun baton, and he says, "We have underestimated you. I figured you were just a junior Spider-Man. But now I have to deal with you." Miles cloaks himself, telling Dum Dum that he just needed to see what he was up against, but right now, he's got places to be. As Miles swings away, Dum Dum yells to everyone to switch to full spectrum sights. "Find out where he went!" The agents all look around, but eventually they all stop and they state that he's gone. A short while later, Miles quickly swaps into his street clothes and he sees all of the students waiting outside. He runs up to Genki asking what's going on, and Genki says that it's Cradle. They're doing a sweep looking for teen vigilantes. Miles scoffs, stating, "Oh, man, they're here too? I just got done tussling with some agents on the way here. How come the government can't send this much money to the actual problems? But before the agents could get to him, a report comes in to everyone that Spider-Man has been spotted a few blocks from their location, and they're going to need to report in for backup. Miles lets out a sigh, stating, "Oh, that was close." And Genki says, "I hate this. I hate all of this." After school, Miles meets up with his parents for dinner at the diner. Jefferson asks what's he been up to. Miles tells him that the Cradle agents tried arresting him. They tried arresting Spider-Man, and then they showed up at school. Jefferson says that is a damn disgrace, taking kids away from their parents for no damn reason. And Rio says, actually, it's not for no reason. Miles looks at her shocked as she goes on stating that she is just saying that there is a reason. What he does makes her proud, there's no denying that, but she has to live her life with these blinders on, lying to herself about all of the danger that she is in every day. She sees injured kids all day, dead kids. This world is vicious. These people aren't crazy for thinking that you all need to be more careful. Miles scoffs, stating that he can't believe that his mom is taking the enemy's side, and Rio tells him that she's not taking sides. She will always be on his side, don't ever forget that. But a short while later, and with full bellies, the conversations are forgotten, and the family enjoys their night out. Once the bill is paid, Miles asks if they're all heading back to the house, and Jefferson says that they're actually headed to a baby yoga class in about 10 minutes, so they'll meet up with them later. So Miles takes the train back home, still bothered by what his mother said. Maybe they're all a little desensitized to the superhero thing. Kamala Khan is sitting in a hospital right now, and he's so used to seeing her beat up. He can barely spare a thought for her, and that's not normal. That's not right. But right now, he's just too tired to think about what is. But as Miles opens up the door to his home, he sees the place torn apart. His spider sense goes off and he asks who's there, and that's when he's struck in the head. He tries to regain his balance, but the hits keep coming, faster than he can even keep up with, and as he falls to the ground, he looks up and sees another Spider-Man standing over him. And he says, no, it can't be. With Miles being knocked to the ground, the other Spider-Man webs up Miles' arm. The two struggle and Miles shouts asking who the other person is, but the Spider-Man doesn't answer. Miles manages to kick off the imposter, asking where did he get that knockoff suit? Canal Street? But as Miles attacks, the imposter jumps to the ceiling and sticks to it, with Miles asking, wait, you can wall crawl too? Who are? But before he can get an answer, the imposter lunges down, cracking him in the face, and Miles says, whoa, the strength is there. And the way he reacts, he's gotta have some spider sense too. Miles then clenches his fist, asking, but do you have this though? In a flash, the room erupts in electricity, stunning the imposter and finally giving Miles a moment to breathe. With that taken care of, Miles looks around at the destroyed house, stating that he needs to figure this all out. But first, he has to warn his parents not to come home. As Miles calls, his mother Rio picks up the phone, stating that they're almost home. Is everything all right? And Miles yells at them not to come home yet! There's someone! But before he could finish, his spider sense goes off as the imposter charges up a venom blast, launching Miles out of the building. Across the city, Rio calls out for Miles to answer her, and Jeffrey asks what's wrong. Rio says that she isn't sure. It sounded like Miles was in trouble. Jeffrey tells her not to worry. He'll handle it. Wait, when I say run, run. Rio picks up baby Billy asking, what are you? And Jeffrey shouts, go! Rio gets ready to do just that, but soon the two of them are surrounded by a group of people in red suits, and one of them stating, sorry, mommy, but you're not going anywhere. Back at the apartment, Miles slowly picks himself up from the rubble while a pair of passerbys stop to see what's going on. He quickly cloaks up, climbing up the building to grab his hidden costume, and as the imposter makes his way up, Miles asks, can we just have a conversation first? The imposter jumps in to continue the attack, and the two go back and forth, with Miles yelling, come on, say something! Without responding to the voice, the imposter knocks Miles off the building, sending him crashing into the basketball goal below. Miles yells, you all gotta go! Get out of here! And even before he could finish that sentence, the imposter lands on him feet first. Miles rolls with the momentum, throwing the imposter off of him, and quickly gets up to his feet, stating, I gotta get this guy away from where people can get hurt. Come on, follow me, bootleg! A few seconds later, Miles swings up to one of the higher buildings, and moments later, the imposter lands. He throws a venom blast punch, but Miles catches it, asking, you want to get into a contest with it? All right, let's see who has more juice. They both charge up their blasts, and as they begin to grow in power, Miles yells, if we keep going, we're both gonna die. Back in the streets, the thugs are slowly inching closer, and Jeffrey whispers to Rio that once there's an opening, she's gonna have to run like hell. Rio then asks what is he planning, and Jeffrey tells her that he's gonna make an opening. Just then, Jeffrey bolts towards a car, jumping over the hood, forcing the group to follow him. Elsewhere, Miles slowly opens up his eyes in a dark room, hearing a voice telling him to wake up. He blinks, asking if that's Uncle Aaron. He just had the worst, but as his eyes begin to focus, he stops himself. No, not you! Miles struggles in his restraints, and the assessor taps on his tablet. Subject 002004 is now awake. Miles shouts for him to let him go, but the assessor tells him, as per our terms of agreement, subject 002004 will now comply with all assessor's directives. Failure to comply with directives will result in disciplinary measures enacted on subject 002007. A light flickers on and Miles looks over to see his Uncle Aaron strapped to a chair asking, "What did you do? And why did you send some fake in a spider suit instead of that blue fool?" The assessor tells him that the asset Quantum is indisposed, but they were impressed by the performance of Asset 42. As the imposter walks in, Assessor removes the mask to reveal a Miles clone. Miles shifts in his chair asking, "What the hell is that thing?" An Assessor tells him that Asset 42 is one of several proprietary technologies that they have developed for Client U. Miles asks, "Was that what all this testing was for? To clone me?" And another light blinds Miles as a voice tells him, "I was a lot like that at that age. Smart." As the light fades, Miles' eyes widen as he sees the red suit and he yells, "Ultimatum!" Ultimatum tells him that he's been looking forward to this for a long time. "You may go now, Assessor." Once the Assessor leaves, Asset 42 cloaks itself, and Miles asks what has he done to Prowler. Ultimatum laughs. "That's good. Probably wanted to say Uncle Aaron, didn't you? That's right, I know all of your secrets. Like how Aaron here booby-trapped his suit so that it couldn't be removed. But eventually, I got through to him. He'll be fine, as long as you both cooperate." Miles asks, "What, running Brooklyn's underground wasn't enough?" Ultimatum laughs. No. Running is not the same as owning. Being the biggest isn't the same as being the only. A hologram map appears with several Goblin markers scattered about, and Ultimatum goes on telling him, "Tonight, I'll be taking ownership of Brooklyn. I'll kill every single criminal in this borough that has even an ounce of leadership potential." Miles tells him there's no way that he has the manpower for that, and Ultimatum tells him, "Well, that's true. It's why I've been growing my own manpower. The personal army of the Goblinoids." Miles pauses for a moment and then says, "Goblin, the drug, those mini green goblins at the school, that's why you've been pushing your drugs so cheap. It turns people into those things." Ultimatum tells him, "That's right. It's synthesized from the goblin's blood, and when activated, it turns people into my slaves." Miles then asks why he's telling him all of this instead of just killing him. And as Ultimatum removes his mask, he tells him, "Because we're one and the same. Because I am Miles Morales, and you are a trespasser." The older Miles Morales leans in telling him, "It's all coming back now, huh? The memories. You were ripped away from another Brooklyn, reborn here." Ultimatum walks off. "I was Miles Morales before you arrived. It is time for the trespasser to return to where you came from." Ultimatum pulls down a tarp covering a giant machine, and Miles tells him, "You're nuts. You're absolutely nuts." Ultimatum tells him, "Do not worry. You're not going alone. Everything from that world needs to go back. Everyone, including your parents." Ultimatum turns on a screen to see his thugs, and he sees Jeffrey standing over them. Jeffrey tells him, "I know what's going on. These guys are pretty chatty once their butts are whipped. I'll show you what happens when someone goes after a man's family." Rio begins shouting and cursing, and then Miles hears something as Aaron runs over telling him to get ready. Miles begins to ask how, but Aaron throws a small explosive telling him, "There's no time, Miles." The bomb goes off, knocking Ultimatum out, and Miles asks, "Is he dead?" But Aaron tells him, "No. I wish, but no. We only have a few minutes left." The two begin to run out, and Miles says that he's starting to remember things, the stuff that Ultimatum was talking about. And Aaron tells him, "Yeah, me too. And it's a lot, but right now, we need to keep moving." Before they can get outside, Asset 42 stands there with a group of Ultimatum's men. Miles charges in to take out his counterpart, and as he hits him, Asset 42's face begins to liquefy. After punching Asset 42 in the chest, Miles begins to pull his hand out of the goopy mess, and Aaron tells him, "Focus! That thing is just a lab experiment. Burner clones, cheap and disposable. Only meant to last a day. Don't let it psych you out." Miles punches the head in so hard that it explodes in a fleshy glorp. And Miles says that he does not want to do that again. Aaron hurries up, opening up a window for their escape, and as Miles follows, he says they need to hurry up and find his parents. And then Aaron stands back, putting his back against Miles, telling him, yeah, it's not gonna be that easy, Miles. As the goblinoids all close in, the goblin himself begins to laugh as he walks towards them. Within seconds, the two jump headfirst into the fight, punching and kicking away the Goblin's minions. But as Miles and Uncle Aaron struggle to maintain the offensive, the Goblin laughs, asking, "Oh, is this too much for you? This is just the first wave of Goblinoids. Once we sent out the signal, it'll activate all the people who took our drug. We'll have 10 times this number as everyone transforms into my minions." Aaron gets more aggressive with his swings, and Miles tells him to remember, all of these goblinoids are regular Brooklyn folks. They just gotta be careful not to hurt anyone. As the goblinoids grab a hold of Aaron, he tells him that he's right. They can put "didn't hurt any goblin innocents" on his tombstone. But he's got an idea. Cover your ears in 3, 2, 1. Just then, Aaron throws out a sonic grenade, blowing up a path for them to escape, and Goblin asks, "Oh, we're playing chase now? This should be fun." While a horde of goblinoids follow, Aaron asks what is the plan, and Miles says that they gotta find his folks and stop Ultimatum from turning more people. And they gotta smash whatever that machine was before they all get sent to that other reality. Aaron hops over a fence, stating, "Those are goals, not plans." Once the two of them stop to catch their breath, Miles thinks for a moment and tells them, okay, Ultimatum said that he's going to use a light wave to activate the goblin drug and raise his little army, right? So what we need to do is find out how he's generating that wave before... Just then a blinding green light explodes in the middle of the city as Ultimatum begins the process. The two of them begin to fight their way towards the source of the light, but after encountering the third pack, the heroes begin to lose a bit of their steam. Aaron calls out to escape while he holds back the goblinoids, but Miles tells them that if they're going down, we're going down together. Just then, an explosion goes off and several of the goblinoids are riddled with darts. Bombshell jumps up onto one of the goblinoids asking, "What are these things? They're starting to pop up all over Brooklyn." Starling swoops in, stating that she always seems to be saving his butt. But before the three of them can have their reunion, Starling flies into another set of baddies, stating that they are ugly. Miles takes down another group, yelling, "It's great to see you, but be careful. These things are normal people that have turned into monsters. Try not to hurt them." Bombshell begins setting off small explosives, telling him, "Don't worry. Starling's using tranq darts, and my itty-bitty explosions should only be enough to knock these guys out with minimal injury, Spider-Man." But as the last one falls, Goblin stomps down. "Well, that was clever. But now it's my turn. I am the Green Goblin." Without a second thought, Miles slingshots himself feet first into the Goblin while everyone handles the new additions. Goblin grabs a hold of Miles and slams him into the ground, asking, "How does it feel to know all of your little friends are about to be slaughtered?" And at that moment, a ringing sound can be heard as a shield whizzes through the air, knocking Goblin right in the head. Cap stands there, triumphantly catching his shield. "Not today, gruesome." And he charges in, but when Miles sees who's behind him, he asks, Mr. Davis?" Jeffrey says that he's happy to see him too Spider-Man. "Don't worry why I'm here. Focus on the fight." Once everyone has their footing, Cap asks, "What's the call here, Spider-Man?" And Miles tells him that he should know. "We kick butt!" As Miles throws himself back into the fight, Cap throws his shield, telling him, "Not a very precise strategy, but it works." With everything else covered, Miles focuses all of his hits on the Goblin, punching him over and over again. But soon the hits become angrier, they become more vicious, and Miles yells that this time he will beat him so hard that he will never get back up again. Jeffrey runs over, grabbing a hold of Miles before he can swing again, telling him, "That's enough, Goblin is done." And a voice tells him, "So are you." A giant red boot stomps onto the ground, blowing everyone away, and Miles looks up, simply surprised, stating, "No." And that's when Ultimatum looks down as he towers over them. "Yes, say goodbye, Spider-Man. It's your last night on this Earth." Miles jumps to his feet, telling everyone to get back up. "We can do this!" And Cap echoes him, shouting, "You heard the young man. Everyone get up and get into a defensive formation. I'll take point." Ultimatum asks, "You've still got some fight left in you? Good. Take him down, Goblinoids." As Ultimatum's forces all rally together, Miles swings towards Ultimatum's head, telling him, "You turned all these people into monsters. You killed God knows how many. You won't get away with this." Ultimatum swings at him, telling him, "Look around! The Kingpin was elected mayor of New York City. You think people care about Brooklyn? I'm going to beat you to a pulp!" Miles turns invisible, landing on Ultimatum's glove, telling him, "Nah." And as Ultimatum laughs, he activates his Stark nanite particle blaster, forcing Miles to the ground. Ultimatum trains his arm back on Miles, telling him, "That was harmless, but I can't say the same about these repulsors." As Ultimatum begins to shoot into the ground, Cap runs in to cover Miles, asking, "You see how Ultimatum's a little unsure on his right foot? That ain't no Hank Pym. Ultimatum isn't used to fighting at that size." Miles asks, "Right foot, huh? Ultimatum, you're nothing but a knockoff Miles Morales with a knockoff Iron Man glove and a knockoff Captain America shield." He releases a full Venom blast into Ultimatum's foot, throwing him off balance, sending him crashing into the ground. He then pats himself on the back. That's what I'm talking about. And just then, Ultimatum begins to shrink out of sight. Meanwhile, with the others, more and more of the Goblinoids begin to rush in, and Bombshell yells that this is getting real bad. There's too many. Starling flies in, picking Bombshell up out of the group that is surrounding them. But before she can get far, a stray blast hits her wing and the two go falling right back into the middle of things. Moments later, Ultimatum reappears as he grows in size, grabbing Captain America and throwing him across the park. Miles quickly runs in after Ultimatum, and as he shrinks again, Miles asks, "Where are you going? Why not stay one size so?" But that's when a loud wham can be heard, as Ultimatum's shield slams into the back of Miles' head, and Ultimatum asks, "Does it hurt? Don't worry, it won't for long, because you're about to go back to where you came from." As Ultimatum pulls out a pocket-sized version of his machine, he expands it and starts the process of teleporting Miles and Aaron away. Aaron runs towards Miles, telling him that they need to take out the machine. When he was captured, he overheard them talking about it. They should be able to send these fools back if they blow that thing up while they're next to it. Maybe even turn these other folks back to normal, since their condition is linked to the Goblin's presence. Miles says that they're going to need a reverse ionic pulse explosion. How? And Aaron takes off his mask, telling him, "I can do it by overloading the Prowler suit." Miles tells him no, but Aaron goes on telling him that when Billy's older, remind that incredible little sister of yours that she once met her Uncle Aaron. "You hear me? Now get back!" Aaron turns away and begins to program his suit, and Miles yells for him not to do it. Ultimatum asks, "You done yapping? Ready to get beat down again? Wait, no!" Miles calls out to Aaron one last time, and then there's a massive explosion of electricity and light. And as the smoke clears, Miles looks around, shouting for Aaron. As his dad joins him, and Miles says that Aaron's gone. Across the way, the Goblinoids all slowly revert back to their human selves, and Cap says that everyone is becoming normal again. Everything's going back to normal. Miles turns to him. "Normal?" And Cap says, "You all clearly knew the new Prowler." And Jeffrey tells him that Prowler was his brother. Cap places his hand on Jeffrey's shoulder, telling him that he's sorry. Whatever other choices Prowler made, this was a noble thing he did. A heroic ending. Miles yells, "That's easy for you to say! We're still here!" And Cap tells him, "It is easy to say. And you?" But Miles stops him, shouting, "No! No more words! No more speeches!" Miles webs off, and Jeffrey tells Cap that he didn't mean, but Cap stops him. "Yes, he did. Then he's not wrong. We saved some lives, but there are no winners on a night like this." A week later, still feeling the effects of Aaron's sacrifice, Miles sits at the dining room table, and Jeffrey tells him that it's okay to let it out. He knows that it hurt. Aaron was an uncle and a brother. Miles tells him that he's fine, but Rio says that he's not fine. Who does he think he's talking to? Take your sister, please. As he looks down at his little sister, he begins to cry, and his parents, they try to comfort him. Later that night, Miles sneaks back into the park to look through the rubble, and he stares at the broken machine as he says, "Hey, Uncle Aaron, I don't know why I came here to talk to you. I don't know whether you're dead or in another dimension. I just know that I miss you, that it's my fault you're gone, and I don't know if I can keep doing this without you." And as the rain begins to pour down, Miles falls to his knees in tears. And there you have it. Now, personally, I loved this as a Miles Morales storyline, and I don't really know how they're going to go beyond this. The idea that they're dipping back into his history, but not like straight up revealing it or returning him, I'm really curious what's going to happen in the Ultimate Universe, because it's kind of been hinted at, and I'm wondering if Marvel Reborn is going to be hinting at it a lot more or actually bring it back, but we won't know until the actual storyline comes out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your support and watching this full video, and I will see you next week right here at another full story.